How did Kong shoot up to be the same height as Godzilla? Why did Millie Bobby Brown's feelings towards Godzilla change? And how does Peter Jackson, the mastermind behind Lord of the Rings, impact this movie's visual effects? And will there be an actual winner between the two titans? Hi, I'm Dylan. Let's get right into the kaiju action. How Kong became bigger. You know, kids grow up so fast these days. But how in the world did Kong manage to get to be the same size as Godzilla since we last saw him? Well, as it turns out, it was sheer luck in the writing department and something that no one had truly thought of too much. Set in 1973, Kong, Skull Island, introduced us to the giant ape that ruled over the island. Standing 104 feet tall, he was no small fry to begin with. However, his adversary is a jaw-dropping 393 feet in Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Whew. Now that's a significant height difference right there. Fast forward to modern times in Godzilla vs. Kong, and they look to be more on par. Does that mean Kong has been taking all his vitamins these past years? Well, director Adam Wingard credits the previous filmmakers for making his life easier in this regard. He said, "They gave us a good out in Kong's Skull Island when they mentioned that Kong is still growing. Kong was merely just a teenager in the previous film, so it makes sense that he's finally reached adulthood by now. Also, it made the special effects job much easier, as the team weren't given headaches trying to figure out proportions on screen or how these two could do battle in a convincing way despite their size differences. Instead, the answer was much more simple: puberty. Who would have ever thought of that?" Millie wasn't a fan of Godzilla. If there are monsters in something, you know that Stranger Things superstar Millie Bobby Brown can't be too far away. Having appeared in the previous film, she returns for Godzilla vs. Kong. However, Millie revealed that she wasn't a fan of the big ugly kaiju. She told Kids World, "I'll be honest, I was definitely not a fan of Godzilla, which is a good thing because my character isn't." Millie added that her character didn't know how to feel about the Titan at first, but she grew to love and show affection towards the monster. And now the feelings will only develop further in this new movie. So while most other humans will likely be Team Kong in this film, she'll probably be in Godzilla's corner. Maybe she could end up playing a deciding role in who actually wins this epic battle. The lowest budget in the MonsterVerse. Nowadays, no one blinks an eye when someone tells you a film cost over $200 million to make. In fact, you're more surprised when a blockbuster is less than that. So it might come as a bit of a surprise that Godzilla vs. Kong was reported to cost only $155 million by the New York Times. While there have been other sources that have disputed this number, the budget does tend to make sense in the context of things. For one, Godzilla, King of the Monsters was super expensive to make for the studio and actually lost money at the end of the day. And two, there's no way that the studio would give the sequel more money if the previous film lost an absurd amount of cash. Sorry fam, studio execs aren't exactly generous like that. The quantity of visual effects doesn't impact a movie at all, because it's what the director does with what they have at their disposal. I mean, look at Monster Hunter as a recent comparison. It cost $60 million to make, and the monsters still looked fantastic and high quality. And judging by the trailer, Godzilla vs. Kong looks like the real deal and no cheap Asylum ripoff. But we'll be diving into more special effects details later on. The Pacific Rim crossover. Ever since the first Pacific Rim film saw humans and mecha robots take on kaiju, fans have been dreaming about the franchise crossing over into the MonsterVerse. Honestly, it makes total sense to just let all this insanity take over the screens, and at this point, it's ridiculous enough to just happen. That being said, Legendary has told fans that it isn't gonna happen. Huh? Well, we all know that there's no way they'd tell us until firm plans are put in place and everything is signed off, but they do own all three properties, so it isn't impossible. Since Godzilla vs. Kong is the final installment in the MonsterVerse, it only makes sense to set up the next evolution of the franchise. Perhaps even a post-credit scene that teases the future? Stephen S. DeKnight, who directed Pacific Rim Uprising, kinda let the cat out of the bag, or at the very least, that there are talks taking place. He told Bloody Disgusting, "There's been a lot of discussion about that possibility of crossing over. Look, I think it would be fantastic to have the Pacific Rim universe join Legendary's Monster Universe. It seems like a natural step." Steven added that as a fan, this is something he'd love to see. Right now, all signs point to this being a highly likely possibility if there are plans for Legendary to continue making monster movies. And it sounds like Godzilla vs. Kong is the perfect bridge to bring all these worlds into the same universe. But do you think it'll happen? Netflix almost bought it. Considering how huge the names of Godzilla and King Kong are, you'd expect this movie to be a centerpiece for any movie theater. You know, the summer blockbuster to slay all other challengers and pretenders. Unfortunately, the pandemic and current situation of cinemas threw all the previous plans out the window. With everything in disarray and no one knowing if life would go back to normal soon, streaming giant Netflix thought it was the perfect opportunity to acquire the project. It offered a reported $200 million for the rights to show the film on its platform. Undoubtedly, it would have been quite the coup for Netflix, as a film of this caliber would definitely bring more eyeballs to its service. Well, Warner Media blocked any potential sale since it holds a 25% stake in the film. Instead, it announced plans to release the film on HBO Max and theaters simultaneously, much like it did with Wonder Woman 1984, and it plans to do the rest with its releases for 2021. Allegedly, Legendary was furious about this initial decision, but the details were worked out behind the scenes and everyone seems to be on the same page now. The question now is, will Godzilla vs. Kong still be able to do the business at the few theaters that remain open, as well as attract new customers for HBO Max? Time will tell. The Peter Jackson influence. There's no doubt that Peter Jackson has an eye for the spectacular. Not only did he redefine what's possible in cinema with his Lord of the Rings trilogy, but he also took home all the plaudits and awards for his work on 2005's King Kong. Fans and critics couldn't praise the effects enough, as Peter took the visual effects in a direction never seen before. In a case of history repeating itself, Weta Digital, the digital effects company that Peter co-founded almost 30 years ago, is handling a lot of the effects for Godzilla vs. Kong. Weta was also behind Peter's King Kong movie and the recent Godzilla reboot, so it has all the history and knowledge to take on these iconic characters. Considering the post-production process on this film took place for over a year, the team has certainly had the time to perfect what it's needed. In fact, some of the delays only eased the deadline pressure and allowed them to create the best possible effects. Looking at the trailer, it appears as if Weta certainly used its time wisely. While many fans would have loved to have seen Peter direct something like Godzilla vs. Kong, it's still great to see how his influence in the world of visual effects continues to impact modern blockbusters to this day. Legend, that's all I'll say. The Experienced VFX Personnel. You know how I said that it isn't the quantity of visual effects that make a difference? I wasn't kidding. Arguably, the most important people in the special effects process are the visual effects coordinator and supervisor, who ensure that the movie will look good and not amateurish. Thankfully, Godzilla vs. Kong got Zach Fox and John DJ Desjardins for these vital roles. Zach cut his teeth on productions like Christopher Robin in Pirates of the Caribbean, Salazar's Revenge, while DJ is known for helming the likes of Man of Steel, Watchmen, Batman vs. Superman, and The Matrix Reloaded. Wow. That list alone is like the who's who of visual spectacles from the past 2 decades. By hiring the likes of Zach and DJ, you immediately inherit a wealth of experience and understanding of the best practices for visual and special effects. They've seen the technology evolve throughout the years and know what's quicker, easier, and more efficient for the production. Taking one look at the trailer's sensational visual effects, it seems like the filmmakers got exactly what they paid for here. Why the delays? As mentioned earlier on, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, didn't quite deliver what the studio expected. It should have been an easy win at the box office that would have brought in hundreds of millions of dollars. Instead, it ended up flopping and failing to break even, using Hollywood's weird accounting system. There were fears that Godzilla vs. Kong would have been canceled altogether, since studio execs are often reactionary to these sorts of things. Fortunately, it didn't happen, but it did force the powers that be to take a good long look at what happened and to plan better. Speaking to Deadline in 2019, Warner Bros. Chairman Toby Emmerich said the following: Godzilla vs. Kong will deliver for fans in a way they were looking for in Godzilla, King of the Monsters. It might come out later in the year, so we can deliver an A+ movie. Of course, the pandemic did impact the decision to delay the film from 2020 to 2021, but it shows that the studio realized the filmmakers needed more time with it. What was particularly surprising is how Warner Bros. Learned from its failures instead of doubling down and putting pressure on the filmmakers to just make it happen. Whichever way you look at it, that seems like a win-win for everyone here, wouldn't you say? A clear winner. Batman vs. Superman, Freddy vs. Jason, Alien vs. Predator. What do they all have in common? There's never a defined winner in any of those movies. If you're a pessimist, you might think the same cop-out will happen in Godzilla vs. Kong. But director Adam Wingard says that won't be the case. Chatting to Entertainment Weekly, he said, "I do want there to be a winner. The original film was very fun, but you feel a little let down that the movie doesn't take a definitive stance. Adam added that he wants people to walk out of the movie knowing who the clear winner is. That's music to our ears, but the question is, will Team Kong or Team Godzilla fans be left happy by this decision? Would you like us to cover more of Godzilla vs. Kong? Let us know in the comments section down below what sort of topics you'd like to see us explore in the future. And while you're at it, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for some more awesome videos. Thanks for watching.